Once upon a time, in a grand and prosperous kingdom, there lived an emperor who loved clothes more than anything else in the world. He cared nothing for matters of state or the well-being of his people. His greatest joy was wearing the finest garments. Every day he would change his clothes multiple times, and he was always eager to buy the latest fashions from the most skilled tailors and weavers. The emperor's obsession with clothes became so extreme that he spent all of the kingdom's wealth on his wardrobe. His ministers and courtiers, wanting to stay in his good favor, praised every new outfit, even though some of the clothes were quite extravagant and unnecessary. The emperor took great pride in his appearance, and soon his wardrobe became his most important concern. One day, two swindlers arrived in the kingdom. They had heard of the emperor's vanity and saw an opportunity to deceive him. These two men were skilled in the art of trickery, and they claimed to be weavers of the finest cloth in the world. They told the emperor that they could create a fabric so beautiful and exquisite that it was invisible to anyone who was either unfit for their position or simply too foolish to appreciate its magnificence. They promised that they would make a suit of clothes for the emperor that would be unlike anything anyone had ever seen. The emperor, who was always eager to have something extraordinary, immediately became interested. He ordered the two swindlers to begin work right away, not fully understanding the trickery that was taking place. The swindlers set up two looms and pretended to weave, although they were not using any fabric at all. Instead, they simply moved the empty looms back and forth, making it appear as though they were working. The emperor, anxious to see the progress of his new clothes, sent one of his trusted ministers to check on the work. The minister entered the room, and when he saw the empty looms, he was taken aback. But not wanting to appear foolish or unfit for his position, he told the swindlers, "Oh, this fabric is beautiful. The colors are so vibrant." The swindlers, pretending to work, nodded in agreement and praised the imaginary cloth. Next, the emperor sent another of his ministers to inspect the fabric. This minister, too, saw that there was nothing at all on the looms. But afraid of being thought unfit for his position, he too complimented the invisible fabric. He reported back to the emperor that the clothes were breathtaking and unlike anything he had ever seen. The emperor, eager to see the clothes for himself, decided to visit the swindlers in person. When he entered the room, he too saw the empty looms. But just as the ministers had done, the emperor was too proud and too afraid of being thought unfit for his position to admit the truth. He praised the imaginary fabric and ordered that the clothes be made immediately. The swindlers worked diligently, pretending to measure the emperor and cut the invisible fabric. They told him the clothes would be ready soon, and the emperor eagerly awaited his new attire. Finally, after days of pretending to sew and stitch, the swindlers declared the clothes were complete. They helped the emperor into the garments, and he paraded around in his new clothes, admiring himself in the mirror. The emperor, proud of his new attire, announced that he would wear the clothes during a grand procession through the city. The streets were crowded with people eager to see the emperor's new garments. The emperor, convinced that he was wearing something extraordinary, walked proudly through the streets, with his courtiers and ministers following behind him, all pretending to admire his fine clothes. As the emperor marched through the streets, the people cheered and clapped, praising the magnificence of his new outfit. However, in the crowd, a small child, too innocent to understand the need for pretense, looked up at the emperor and shouted, "But he isn't wearing anything at all!" The people, stunned, suddenly realized the truth. The emperor was walking through the streets completely naked. They had all been too afraid to speak the truth before, but now, seeing the child's honesty, they began to murmur among themselves. The emperor was not wearing any clothes. Despite the realization, the emperor, too proud to admit his mistake, continued his procession. He tried to maintain his dignity, walking as though nothing was wrong. His courtiers, too embarrassed to acknowledge the truth, continued to follow him, pretending as though everything was fine. Finally, the emperor finished the parade, humiliated but determined not to show any weakness. The swindlers, meanwhile, had long since disappeared with the emperor's money, leaving behind only their deceit. The story of the emperor's new clothes became famous throughout the land. It served as a reminder to the people that vanity, pride, and fear of judgment can cloud one's judgment and lead to foolishness. And most importantly, it taught them that sometimes the truth comes from the most unexpected sources, even a child.